Now, let's get back into the Promise collection here because I want to hear what you bought. I want to know how much you spent. This is public. I know you're going to be fine to say it because if we don't say it, people are going to go onto the website and see it. I want to know why. I want to know what was going through your brain, your noggin, your head. Dish.
All right. So are we talking about just the Promise books?
Yeah, just the Promise books today.
I bought 2 Promise books, guys. 2. All right. And one of them was Submariner Comics 11.
Dude, I love that cover, man. We showed that cover during our Golden Age analysis for Variant Comics. Shout out Eris and Tim. That's the one where there's like that, he's like in the dragon's mouth, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, it's one of the best covers, and I think in those first, I don't know, 20 issues at least. One's pretty good. 11, and I think 12 or 13. There's like ones with snakes around. That's really awesome too. But I love that cover. It was an 8.0 Promise book, and I wasn't looking to buy that. I mean, I have a couple of copies already in my personal, and I'll probably let one go now just because.
What was the grade of this one, and what was your list like when you entered? You don't have to get into specifics on which comics, but how many comics were you like, if I can, I'm going to get one of these?
So the only 2 books, look, I try not to go in with a list. Same thing as I do at a comic convention, I tell you all the time. I don't go in there with a plan. I go in there and I find my best options for books. Okay.
Yeah, you're kind of inspired. Use the force kind of thing.
Yeah, there's always books you're looking out for. If it happens, great. But then I don't leave disappointed because I'm always looking, because I have enough out there option wise that I'm open to purchase.
Sure.
So it's kind of the same idea with this. I was like, all right, whatever comes my way will come my way. This happened to come my way, I thought. And again, it did kind of hit me with the buyer's premium after. Because I was like, oh, that's a pretty good price. And then it closes. And I was like, oh, that's right, BP. There it is. Another 20%. All right. But still a cool book. I think after it closed for $19,200 after BP is where it went to.
19,000.
Yeah, 200 I think was what it closed at.
Okay, so let's round down to make you feel better. So 19K for Submariner. Okay.
Yeah, and then the other book that I got was a Captain Flight Comics number 11, classic LBCO. So 2 number 11 comics, classic LBCO cover. It was a 9.0 white pager.
Nice.
And I thought this one went for pretty inexpensive. I don't know what I paid for it.
You don't know what you paid for it?
Hold on, let me look it up.
Figure it out. Dude, I got to know what you paid for this book, man. He's forgetting already, comic fam. But what I will say is there was a lot of LB Cole that hit Heritage, and wow, some of the prices on these books, we were chatting about what we thought they would go for, and we were throwing out numbers like, does it deserve to hit this? Or like, based on the grid, what do we think? And every step of the way with every one of these sales, it outdid expectations. So the fact that you're saying already that there was a book that you felt like was kind of affordable, like surprisingly a good deal, I'm curious if there were any others that surprised you.
I ended up paying $18,000 after BP for this Captain Flight. 9.0. It wasn't the highest graded, but it was a 9.0 white pages from a Promise pedigree. I feel that was pretty soft for that sci-fi book.
Okay.
I do feel that I bought that with some value to it.
So about $37K, and you bought other things. I'm assuming now you're probably looking to sell some books.
Yeah, I'm probably going to sell some books here because you got to...
You mentioned it. You're like, yo, if I go over there, I'm going to be, thinking if I'm going to get these, I'm going to move some other things. So.
And so I left stuff there to consign. Okay, I left a bunch of books. I took a short box of books. I was like, here you go for consignment to put towards the purchase of these books. Then they're going to auction those books off, and then it'll just help pay off the process, right?
Sure.
So I'm just feeding the beast, all right? It just goes in this circle.
The dragon.
The dragon for this case, exactly. And so the other 2 books I bought, one of them was also on a whim. It was a Famous Funnies book for Zeta. Again, BP hit me. I was like, oh, shoot. It's like that taxes on eBay when it hits you, but double the tax.
Hey, I got hit up by a bunch of members after we chatted about that who said if you can upload a reseller's permit. And
yeah, I was telling you that, man.
Yeah, I got to do that, man.
Yeah.
Damn. It's making me not want to buy books right now. I'm like, I got to do that first.
You got to do that. So, and then was another Super Mystery Comics, one of my favorite books that I wanted. And I bought it, and allegedly the Promise collection had a copy in it. So I was buying it as the highest graded, but you just don't know what the promise was going to come back.
Oh, so you may be outdone. So there's a little bit of a risk there. Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Right. But the promise collections, the next portion is coming out in their September auction. And it came back 8.5.
Oh, okay.
So mine was a 9.2, I think.
Oh, so you're still leading the charge. Okay, cool.
Leading the charge, and I'm expecting this 8.5 to sell for a lot. So that will now probably jump my 9.2 purchase to even higher. So that was a little bit of a
calculated investment with some risk, but it looks like it's paying off.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, I'm not looking to move that book. It's a personal book. So anyways, those were my 2 promise books. I'm excited to get a piece of it. I think I might be done now that I got a couple pieces and got it out of my system. I mean, I really injected my system with a lot of it, man. I went down there, dude. So I think it's officially out of my system for now. And I'm excited for anybody else who wants to get some books. It's going to be interesting to see what else happens with round 2.
Okay, let's get into the Promise Collection prices, okay? And then we're going to talk about grading, so stay tuned. Long podcast coming today. We're already an hour in. What's going on? Where are you getting this type of content? Comic fam, 1 hour in. And we got so many more expensive comic books to discuss. Okay, so first off, let me read you this right here, okay? Because I cracked open some of these books. Not literally, I got some digital copies. Let's make it happen. And I want to read a little bit of a riddle for you, okay? Calling all mystery fans, we're talking the first page of Detective Comics 140. Now, this is a first appearance of a major character, but we defy you to solve these sinister riddles. Who is the latest criminal to challenge Batman and Robin to a deadly game of wits? Who is the villain to use riddles, jigsaws, acrostics, and all types of puzzles to perplex the dynamic duo? Who places Batman and Robin in a maze of doom where only courage and ingenuity can fathom freedom? There is but one answer to all of these riddles. His name is the Riddler. That's right. We're talking about Detect 140. Detect. It's because we have, okay, you know what? One thing I did in the last couple weeks, we'll say things like TOS. What does TOS mean?
TOS, Tales of Suspense.
So when we were going through and like getting these comic books down, you spelled them out Tech, T-E-C. That's how we call these books. It's a nickname, but Tech is Detective Comics. We're talking about Detective Comics 140, the first appearance and origin of the Riddler, coming out in 1948 in October. Fitting, Halloween month, for a kind of a sinister villain. And this book at a 9.6 went for $456,000.
That was an insane number in that room. To watch it almost hit $500,000 for the first appearance of the Riddler. I mean, that, and I'm going to tell you, that was crazy. But the next book after this, when we get into it, is even crazier. Just a little touch of it. I mean, but this character, Riddler's super popular. I mean, he was so popular. He was the very first villain on that 1966 Batman series. I mean, that's how big he got.
I mean, he's on the cover. It's seldom that you see villains on the cover. You're going to see them sell for an inflated amount, just like this next one. I'm assuming you want me to jump over to Solomon Grundy.
No, man.
Oh, you want to talk about Phantom Lady?
I think I preluded to the Phantom Lady.
All right, we're doing it again. Okay, here we go. So next one on this list is Phantom Lady 17. You've seen it on the show already today because we did an homage to it because that's how much we love this cover. Well, the comic fam loves this cover. The collectors, the investors certainly do. This book is Phantom Lady 17. Cover art by Matt Baker. A 9.6. Is it right? It went for the exact same amount as the Riddler?
This was the most unbelievable moment in the auction to see a good girl cover tied at grade, same grade, 9.6, pink pages, because Victor Fox, who owned Fox Publications, apparently used pink paper because you can get a really good price on pink paper, pink pages. I always thought it was kind of a color bleed. You got a lot of pink, but allegedly there's actual pink paper that he used. Regardless, good girl, to go for $456,000 as well.
Wow.
I don't know if anybody could have predicted. A lot of the good girl books did really, really well. Okay, they did. But come on. Like, I would never have speculated, the number for the Riddler anyway, but to be the exact same price as a superhero villain, I mean, I don't know. That's crazy, crazy numbers, guys.
Phantom Lady 17, a major collectible comic, very important to collectors and investors. This book, cover art done by Matt Baker. It's a bondage cover. It's a good girl cover. She's like, wrapped in rope. This book was referenced in The Seduction of the Innocent, which is what led to the establishment of the Comics Code Authority that would end up being a burden on creativity for years, preventing things like ghouls and monsters and vampires and anything sinister to be written or drawn in a comic book because it was potentially corrupting the youth. But here's the reason that Wortham writes about the cover and why he referenced it in the Seduction of the Innocent. It's that it was sexually stimulating by combining headlights, which is what they would call breasts back in the day, with the sadist dream of tying up a woman. Now, I've read this comic, and I don't think Wortham was reading his comics because really this cover is pretty tame, but the inside has way more things that you'd be surprised to see post-code, but even in modern times.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how tame the cover was because you got to look at it at the time and period.
Sure.
I mean, at the time and period, yes, it was a very sultry cover.
It is very sultry.
Okay, and the interiors, yes, it is a female. It's a heroine in her garb that's low cut and exposes certain areas. Sure, but the message is different. He's going by like the appearance, but the message in the comic is very positive.
Right.
Because you're seeing these abused, almost roughed women who are then being saved by a female character who's tougher than a lot of the men in it. So honestly, the message is strong to just show that, this woman has strength and she's powerful, despite what she's wearing. But he took only by the visual aspect of it. So it doesn't even feel like he looked at it in a manner that would be non-subjective.
Yeah, it's like when I'm reading through this, I was more surprised seeing as much abuse and like just roughing up the females in the comic. Like that's where if there was someone that was going to point to something that they don't want kids to read or see, even if it was done in a way that was like, yeah, look, we have empowering women who are saving the day, just like Cap and Bucky. Yeah, there may be a swastika or Hitler on the cover, but they're there to stop it. They're there to, fight crime and save people, just like Phantom Lady was. But if you're going to point to something, maybe point to the panels that are less about how much she's wearing or how little she's wearing and more about how women are just treated in general in this comic book. So it's a little random to see that. But this is one of those books, man, that are very wanted in the community, very expensive. And we're going to see a trickle-down effect from this, regardless of it being from a particular pedigree. We're going to see other comics start to hike up in price regardless of grade because this one just set a huge marker for the top tier.
It definitely has already increased values for the entire Phantom Lady run, except for maybe the Ajax publications, which were after the Fox. There was another series, like a series 2. But, Matt Baker's covers on there and even Jack Kamen's covers on there, who's an amazing artist as well. So you're definitely seeing that trickle-down effect.
The next book on this list is All-American Comics 61 from 1944. First appearance of Solomon Grundy. You love this character, man.
I love this character. He's got that weird historical story of coming from this like 1700s poem of this guy who basically is born every week and dies in a week. And it's just this tale of just born on a Monday and basically dies on a Sunday. So
we're going to read something here from one of the first pages of this comic book. Introducing Solomon Grundy, the monster. We have a tale of Solomon Grundy. Born on Monday, got a mob on Tuesday, robbed on Wednesday, looted on Thursday, murdered, muck duck on Friday, trapped on Saturday and Sunday, dealing with Alan Scott. I added that last little part. But you know what? Dealing with Alan Scott is what this villain does. And he would live on well past the Golden Age to become one of the fan favorites of Batman's Rogues Gallery, DC's Rogues Gallery, and All-American Comics 61. What was the grade on this book?
This was a 9.6. Now, this is not the highest graded.
Yeah, isn't that the Church?
The Church, I think it's the Church, but there is a 9.8 out there. I'm sure it's the Church because I know who owns it. So it should be the Church 9.8, and but it closed at $138,000, which honestly I thought it would be a bigger number.
I thought that would be bigger.
I did.
That's a huge book, a tough book, a scarce book, a high grade with that pedigree label. Surprising.
Yeah, a little surprising for me. And like I said, I've always loved this character. I think this character would be great in a film. I mean, you could do so much with a kind of a mystical type character like that. So, I mean, I would love to see it someday, but I was shocked. This was one of those prices where I was like, oh, but it was the second book in the auction, so maybe people didn't want to, spend all their money at once. I'm not sure, but it didn't seem like people were running out of money in this auction.
All right, the next book on this list is a classic cover by Jerry Robinson. We have Joker featured, and that is prominent and a main reason why this book is so difficult to secure because people want it bad. We're talking Tech 69. We're talking a 9.0. We're talking about $126,000 sale.
That's a solid number. I mean, I've always loved the two-gun cover that he's got. You know, I've always loved that cover. And a lot of people do. It's probably one of the most appreciated Joker covers because I can't think of another Joker cover that I like better than that, at least for Golden Age. But that's a strong number. I mean, you just didn't know where this stuff's gonna go, but $126K, whew.
Hot damn, right? And this is one of those books that I recommend the comic fam read, find yourself a reprint, find yourself a digital copy. So there's a little bit of an aspect of comics that I really enjoy, which is the historical Americana that is kind of carried on through narratives, even briefly. They didn't even really intend it to happen. It was just what was going on during the day, back in the day, rather. Joker is a villain that up until this point was traditionally stealing things that were expensive, right? He was hustling, he was causing crime, he was doing a lot of jokes, right? Doing a lot of funny things, but also with the goal of making money. And Joker is stealing cameras in this narrative. Like he's hunting down lenses, he's hunting down, stuff to take pictures of. And the Boy Wonder, Robin, specifically asked Batman, like, what's up with this? Why is he after cameras? What does he say?
It's super interesting because during the war, there was a manufacturing halt on cameras. So Joker, being the opportunist that he is, saw money and value in cashing out on cameras.
That's right. So he's surprising the Boy Wonder, but Batman knows what's going on. And there's also a panel that needs to be showcased in here. We see a lot of like random panels being clipped out and, created into memes. And, we know the Boy Wonder getting slapped, right?
Yeah.
That whole one. Well, this one right here is a special one because Joker outsmarts Batman, okay? He plants a exploding like flash bulb in the back of the truck that he is currently like trapped in. Batman captures Joker with Robin's help. They're driving down. They hear a bang, and Batman thinks like something happened to the truck. But he was fooled. Joker just had an explosive device, went off. Batman gets tricked. Joker breaks out, kicks the Boy Wonder out of the truck, and gets away. And Batman is pissed. He is mad at himself. He knows that he fell for, quote, the oldest trick in the book. So he does what anyone else would do. He says, Robin, will you please kick me in the pants and do it without asking any questions? Robin then says, okay, well, you're the boss. What's the gag? And then kicks Batman in the ass. He was just frustrated with himself. Like you read these panels and you're going, wait, what did I miss? But no, it's just Bruce Wayne is frustrated that he got had by the Joker. And he says, you know what? I deserve a swift kick in the butt. So Robin delivers. All right, looking at this next one on the list, we have a comic book that is famous, a comic that's a classic, a comic that you have mentioned a few times that you think is a little bit, put on a pedestal because the art is, some would say, a little bit more simple, but it's more than it being simple because it's L.B. Cole who popularized the black light cover which really started a lot of like fantastical science fiction covers. This guy would be going on a creating spree in the 40s. Well, Contact Comics 12 is a great example of that. 1946, a 9.6. Dude, I'm surprised. I'm surprised at seeing that this book went for $63,000.
Surprised in which direction that it did?
I feel like that's low, but I know that that isn't as low because it's not a huge key. But this is such a wanted book on the con floor that I thought with the added layer of the pedigree that we may see this approach the $80,000 marker.
Yeah, this is a tough one to gauge, right? I mean, you know how I feel about this cover.
Right.
So seeing it at 60 is still it's still a lot of money, right? Being 9.6, I can see why you wouldn't think that maybe it can go a little higher. I think this is probably about what it deserves.
Right.
So this one hits about right, but it's an interesting book because if you think about the interior, you kind of have this sci-fi feel of a cover, but really the interior isn't about a sci-fi story. That's
something that's a little bit of a misunderstanding about this book because it is a very, like you see kind of planets and you see almost a rocket ship that looks advanced, like a futuristic type of vibe happening. And then when you incorporate that black light cover, you're thinking you're in for like a Star Trek type of situation, you know, what aliens are going to pop up. But this is a comic book that's more about flight, airplanes and jets and things like that. However, this is a comic book that probably had more to do with children and young adults learning about real world applications and science than they were getting in school.
It's a super fun read. Like if you really think about some of these books, I mean, like we always said, people learned to read through these comics. They were very text driven. And they used big words, they had historical meaning to them, and they discussed things that were interesting. And we'll get more into some of these story arcs, and you'll be like, wow, they're actually really in-depth, even relevant to today in some aspects of certain fears that you can feed on. So this book just gets into just understanding flight. Who doesn't want to understand flight, especially in that time frame when you're just learning about planes, why they stay in the air, how they maneuver, how to be a pilot, just these fun things as a kid.
We're not even talking about like a fictional narrative that has little lessons to be learned. No, we have multiple stories, but yeah, you have a story in the beginning that's like, drama that, ends with, people flying airplanes and saving people. Sure. It's a comic. But then you have the reason why this has a sci-fi looking cover on it. We have an entire section about explaining to the reader why we will achieve the success of reaching the moon one day. This is 1946. We wouldn't get to the moon till 1969. So ahead of its time, but using a narrative saying, look where we came from. As soon as we discovered gunpowder, as soon as we learned that we can send rockets into the air, as soon as the government was able to learn how to make something nuclear, that now gives us the promise, the idea that we will be able to manufacture something that could escape Earth's gravitational pull. How could we even do that? And they're literally showing panels of, it's all fiction. At this time, this wasn't anything that was actually happening, but they're putting these ideas into place so that the reader, that kids can see that no, science is heading into the direction, and where they're headed is to other planets. But first, we got to hit the moon. And what we can do is create a rocket and have that rocket detach, and that'll escape the gravitational pull. And then that could actually launch you towards the moon. You don't need to land on the moon. You just have to go around the moon because you can use the moon's gravitational pull to propel you. And then it can head you back to Earth where you can land safely. Like they're doing all this reasoning to just give some inspiration to young adults to make something that is so scientific and intelligent a bit more palatable for the average person.
Yeah, presenting concepts.
Right.
This is what's interesting about the comics, because you can kind of suspend belief, and they used this comic to express scientifically. I mean, they had to maybe do some research so that you can understand and let the next generation know this is what's going to happen for the future. Get excited because that's where we're going, to the moon and back. So cool comic. Hate the cover. I don't hate the cover. Hate's a strong word. overrated cover in my opinion, but the interior is made up for it. It was a lot of fun. It was a really cool read.
There's a couple stories in between these like lessons to be learned, but there's like a 3-page story about, oh, what are we going to do? There's fog on the landing field. It's going to affect our scheduling. We're not going to be able to fly. And then it's like, no, this is why you don't need to be able to see when you land a plane. And they go into it, the trajectory and how you can work with ground control and how you can do the math so you know exactly at what angle to land. Like there's an abundance of art that describes step by step on how to fly a plane and how a plane can glide and suspend into the air and stay in the air. It's an amazing thing. And notice we didn't bring up aliens at all. And you would think that on the cover that there would be some type of fantastical science fiction vibe to it, and it's not. It's just getting you to buy it off the damn newsstand. LB Cole, you are a freaking beast.
It's early age clickbait, guys. Just like you have it now, man. You're just doing it so you can buy it or click on it here.
All right, this next one is Captain America 36, a 9.4 back in 1944. Classic cover by Sid Shores. And this book is ridiculous. We'll get into a little bit about it because, wow. Yeah. Like the Golden Age books, they went there, man. They went the distance, but the price went the distance. Hit them with the sale.
Dude, a 9.4 of this book. Again, this went for way more than I thought it was going to go for. $204,000. All these numbers guys are giving you are after BP, okay? This is the final number that the person's going to pay. $204,000 for this cover. I mean, this is not a Schomburg cover either. Okay, it's a classic Hitler cover. Okay, it's not even a great one, but it's a classic one.
Hitler's not even in the book. Like I read through these pages. There's Golden Age books have a bunch of stories in them. This one I think had 4 or 5.
Yeah, I mean the nice thing is about these the pages were generally anywhere from like 54 to 64 pages, and you usually got anywhere from 4 to like 7 stories, depending on times in the Golden Age, what books, whatever. So you did get your money's worth when it came down to it for a dime. I mean, you got a good amount of artwork, great storytelling. And so, and another thing about this book too, I mean, in high grade, it's not easy to get in high. It's got a small staple. I mean, not your normal, just feels like it's a little extra small. I have this book, or I have this book, and the staple is really small, and it crimps a certain way on the interior. So like my centerfold popped out of mine just because of the process of that book just closing it all.
Yeah, that paper wears even a little bit, and when that staples really dig it in there, it starts to dry out over time, and then pop.
Yeah, just like that. So anyways, kudos on this awesome book with $204K. Man, again, those are some of the numbers, man, and you're going to see more as we're going.
There's an awesome fighting Nazi story in this. It's the last story of the book. Bucky and Cap going up against General Von Savage, right?
Sounds like a WWE wrestler or something.
A little bit, right? Yeah, they're trying to break through they're trying to get through France and do a secret attack, but they're stopped by our Captain America, right? Leading the charge, protecting the community.
I don't even know if did the book have an interior Hitler appearance?
Not that I saw, no.
So he might not even been in the story. Like,
I don't think he was.
We tried to find him. I didn't see him. I don't know if you saw him.
I went page by page, man. I did not find him.
Yeah, so it's a World War II story. Obviously Captain America saves the day.
But the blood of Dr. Necrosis. This story in here is insane, comic fam. We have something that had to be like something that soldiers back during the war had to be a little concerned about. They were getting a lot of blood transfusions. Like Red Cross was delivering a lot of blood to injured personnel and veterans, all right? And this is a story about a veteran who goes back from the battlefield to get a blood transfusion, and the blood has been tampered with. The blood was tampered by Dr. Necrosis, who is a scientist who has what he calls white gangrene. And this dude does not look good. And this whole narrative is about how he is tampering and experimenting on blood, which is also causing death on the, post-battlefield for injured veterans. And Cap and Bucky have to go and stop him because he's about to extract blood from his assistant, a female that has potentially his cure of his disgusting illness.
This story, I mean, if you really think about how sick that is,
that's messed
and
up,
terrifying
dude.
that could be. I mean, if you're, again, you're a young kid reading this and you're thinking about blood disease and these soldiers going through this and someone tampering with the blood supply. Okay, this is all stuff that, to this day people can just theoretically, imagine or theorize something happening to that extent, right?
Yeah, conspiracy theory kind of thing.
Yeah, conspiracy theories or blood tampering or anything
kind of
getting
dangerous
into,
a little bit to create fiction in that way.
Something getting into the ecosystem,
Right.
in some manner like that. So, again, first off, this is the very first story in the book, and it should be because it's awesome.
It's
all right?
crazy.
And
that first page spread, Dr. Necrosis.
Yeah, that first page spread is nuts. Okay, the very first page. And then, again, the cover story was the last story in the book.
That's right.
Okay, so they did go by what they thought was better for storytelling, but for selling books, they went with what's better on the cover.
So read this, man. I'm going to pull up the page here because it's so ridiculous. The blood of Dr. Necrosis.
It is a far cry from the bloody outposts of the war-flung Pacific battleground, where shell-torn and bullet-ridden heroes gasp for the precious blood plasma to the civilized world, where this life-saving plasma is collected and prepared. Captain America and his pal Bucky, fighting freedom's fight against the Japanese, stumble on the foulest and most insidious plot of all time and trail it to its bloody source.
Whoa, that is like super disturbing. And what a page spread, which, by the way, also doesn't happen in the comic book. We see Bucky, who looks like he's next up for getting a blood transfusion, but he does not get one. He actually is with Cap saving the day. It is grotesque. It is a mind bender. It doesn't feel great reading this because they're talking about a subject that is so uncomfortable. Maybe we could even say it's a little eerie. Transition. All right, next book on this list.
Here.
We have EERIE #1 from 1947. This comic book is dedicated to the horror genre, but it's also considered the first horror comic book. The narratives on the inside are like the first crack at writing an EC-esque story. Can you give a rundown of what that type of style story is?
Well, generally an EC is going to be narrated by another person, but it doesn't have its own narrator.
Yeah, that is a difference. This doesn't have like a narrator.
Yeah, this is just generally with horror stuff for EC, somebody bad does something bad, and then they get their comeuppance at the end.
That's right.
Okay.
And it's typically surprising, shocking, a little disturbing or spooky, right?
So this just kind of tells a tale along those lines, and I think you just recently read it, so you'll be able to recall it better. And some people might disagree. This is the first horror book because there are other books that feel horror-like in the collectible, and I could debate this too. For the most part, let's just hit the grade and the price right now. 9.2 for $90K. Now I'll be honest with you. That is really, really far more than I think quite a few people felt this book would go. So again, this book, this pedigree is really drawing out a lot of collectors. $90K, man, I talked to a lot of people who collect horror comics. I don't think they expected it to go past like 45.
That's a hyperinflation, man, because of that pedigree. And yeah, there's a handful of like ghoul stories in here. There was one that I read. I had to read this book a couple months ago, so I don't want to riff on it too much and get it wrong because I didn't read it right before the mic. But I do recall there being a very sinister story about a doctor visiting a patient who then really goes nuts and unleashes a pet tiger in his home that then eats the doctor and does something else foul. They started out strong with the disturbing nature of the horror genre, whether this be the first one. Regardless, it led to a lot and was a very important story. Just like this next banger of a book. This may be one of my all-time favorite Golden Age books, narratives, covers, everything. We have Cap 74. We have Captain America in Weird Tales 74, the tail end of the run. Pretty soon, like following issue 75, we're talking about issue 74, Cap would go on hiatus for 4 years. Cap was not selling as well, and towards the end of the run, you would start to see a more horror narrative, more disturbing stuff happening in these pages. And what do you get on this cover? Get Red Skull, looking demonic for a reason.
Yeah, this was a good read. This is a good book.
Everyone needs to read this story. It's short, but it's worth every page.
Yeah, it's a classic cover. It's one of the best covers in this run.
Let's describe it, man, because it's like it's one of those picture frame covers, and it's surprising how much they kind of cramp the art and how much we still love the cover no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, you have the weird tales. The title itself has this impact on you already. It's white lettering on a red background. It's a strong title.
You don't even see Captain America's name really at first glance.
Yeah.
You trick yourself. You're like, oh, this is Weird Tales 74. But if you look up, they have in smaller letters Captain America's Weird Tales.
Yeah, I mean, this is the transition of superheroes getting out and leaving the comic interest. People's interest in superheroes are already waning at this point.
Right.
So they're going towards more horror, like we discussed. But you still have this attempt, all right, where you have this forgotten character. Because I think the last time we saw Red Skull was back in like issue 60 something. I believe it's like 64. So 10 issues prior, but he was already kind of disappearing. They were going on to crime, and now they're into horror. But you have him coming back with these huge monster claws, okay? And you just think like Swingers, you know, you're like this bear, Mikey, you got this claws, and you're just batting around. Okay, so he's this huge character.
He's got some Joker nails on those hands, you know? They're pointy as hell.
Yeah, you got
like
the demon Red Skull face as usual. Huge, massive claws, clawing at Cap. And you're like, well, what is going on? This is not a normal hero story. This is more fanciful, more horror-like. What is in the pages? And that's where we dove in and got to see why.
It says the Red Skull strikes again. Now, the Red Skull, he comes back, but he doesn't actually come back to the degree that many people would think. The Red Skull is in hell. Don't get it twisted. He's dead in this comic. He's chilling with Satan. He's chilling with his homies. And Red Skull gets his hands on the Book of the Damned. He gets his hands on the book that demons utilize to look at to see who they have to go to Earth and acquire to bring down to Dante's Inferno. And Red Skull's got a great plan. He hunts the book down and he writes someone's name in those pages. He writes Steve Rogers. So what happens?
So like a good demon, one demon reads this book and goes up there and does his job.
He's surprised, man. The demon's like, I did not expect to see someone this honorable in this book, but hey, it's in the book.
Yeah, he was just like, I never thought I would see this name here. Okay, so he's up there and Cap's just chilling, right? Here's a knock at the door. And what do? When you hear a knock at the door? You're going to go see, hey, who's there? You can't check Ring at this time, okay? You don't have your cameras, security cameras to look, all right? Even though he's Captain America. You know, what do you have to worry about? You're Captain America, right? You're great. So he walks up, opens the door, and is snatched by this demon and brought down to the depths of hell.
Dude, Captain America goes into the flames, man. He goes down there. He even says, this looks like Dante's Inferno. And that's exactly what the demon says. Like, yeah, you're here. You're in hell now. We're going to take you to Satan. So, Comic Fam, are you following us right now? Captain America gets dragged down to hell because Red Skull puts his name down in the book of Satan. This is for kids, okay? He goes down there and Satan's like, yo, this is something fishy. Something's going wrong here. And what we're going to do to resolve this is you guys are going to brawl. You guys are going to fight. And whoever wins, you get a ticket right back to Earth. Whoever loses is going to be chilling down here with me forever, for all eternity.
Yeah, and then we get to see Red Skull versus Cap in this fiery octagon, okay? Like just battling to...
They're like on a pillar of flames, right? You can't go off the edge or you fall.
Yeah, battling for salvation, basically. So they duke it out. Cap wins, and he knocks Red Skull out of the arena. But what does he do?
He knocks him out of the arena, but he didn't do it on purpose. Like he's trying to fight for his life. But as he sees that Red Skull is going to fall to his demise, out of instinct, he tries to save Red Skull. Are you kidding me? Captain America is one of the coolest superheroes ever. Even in freaking hell, fighting a demon-looking Nazi. He still sticks to his guns, his almost Batman type of rule book. And is out of instinct, he tries to save him. He goes and grabs a piece of his garment to try to pull him back, and it rips. It rips off. And Red Skull falls to his demise, and that gets him his ticket back to Earth. Satan's like, yep, you won. You're going back up.
And so we get a shot on the next panel of him sitting in his chair, kind of coming to, like waking up.
Oh, it was a dream.
And shaking off, right? Like, oh, this was just a dream. Of
Wow.
course it was just a dream. That couldn't be real.
What a crazy thing that
right?
happened.
God, and what do I have in my hand?
He's got a piece of Red Skull's clothing. I know, man. Mind blown. Comic fam, comics are so dope. This is crazy, but this book, all right, Weird Tales, 74. 9.2 from 1949, okay? Beginning the horror format for Captain America, we have a $204,000 sale.
I'm not shocked by this number at all.
Not at all.
No. This is a great number. Really could have gone more even. I mean, it's just such a cool book.
It's one of those ones where it's like, you could put any number there and I'd go, yeah, probably. You know what I mean? Like 300? Yeah. 350? Oh, yeah, that's high, but yeah, probably. 400? Man, you know what? Yeah, probably. You know, like I don't know. You tell me, man, this is one of the coolest books that's ever been created. And it's not the only Captain America book on this list. We're talking about Captain America 46 from 1945, cover art done by Alex Schomburg. And in 1945, this was a cover that just hits you in the gut. It's a powerful scene. It's an unpleasant scene. It's Cap, it's Bucky saving the day, but it's a wild cover, man.
This is that classic Holocaust cover. Okay, so this is a 9.2 copy. All right, you literally have somebody put into a burner. Jews are being put into a fiery burn to be burned to death.
There's like a line of citizens that are behind. It's very uncomfortable, you know? It's like, man, you got to put yourself in place of what the average American was experiencing and what they were seeing in the newspapers. And, you know, as this information was coming out during World War II, it's grotesque. It's disturbing, but this was their way, the medium of being able to communicate the reality of the world.
Yeah, I mean, this is a way to get some of these horrors out to the public. And so this is what they did. I mean, this is the platform they used to, you know, just push heroes in general and support the war in behalf of the U.S. So this 9.2 copy sold for $162,000.
$162K. How do you feel about that? Because this is one of those books where there's a lot of people who want it because it's such a memorable cover.
Yeah, I think at the time when I saw that, I think I felt that it would have gone a little bit higher. But again, $160,000 is a lot of money.
Right.
Okay, so I think that's apparently a fair price for this book. I can't remember if it's the highest graded or not, but it's a 9.2 classic cover, 162. It does fall in line with some of these other books if you think about the 9.4s of what they sold for at $200,000. So this just makes sense, you know, after seeing the end of this auction and people's mindsets for some of these. So,
and we're not going to let you go without a book that we actually chatted about on the last podcast because we were excited to see it. An 8.5 of Mask number 1. We're going to finish this list off with some L.B. Cole greatness.
Yeah, this is a classic L.B. Cole cover for many people. Definitely one of the more coveted for him, especially on this horror type fantasy. So this was an 8.5, and they did have a number 2 and a 7.5, which we can talk about after because we just will have to. But this 8.5 sold for $102,000, and that's a pretty strong price. I think that's about where a lot of people felt it was going to go, and then it ended up there.
I think we projected that they would hit near 100K. So, you know, that's right around where we thought we would go.
Yeah, and the number 2 did fall a little short. A friend of mine did buy it, and he had his reserve much higher.
Oh, so he's probably feeling pretty good.
He should be feeling pretty good. And I was looking at that, I was like, oh my God, do I bid on this? Should I bid on this?
It's that
I think I should
FOMO.
bid on this. And
But then
I'm glad
you're
I didn't bid
competing
him up.
against your friend, though.
Yes, then I would have bid. I didn't know that though.
Oh.
I did not know. We didn't communicate because it's just happening so fast, and I wasn't thinking. I just thought this book's going to go for too much, number 2. But I'm glad I didn't bid him up, and he got a great book, and so super excited for him, man. So but the Mask 2, I think, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was in the 30s, somewhere mid-30s, low to mid-30s.
Oh, wow. Great
for
deal.
$7.5. That's a pretty good deal.
Wow, Comic Fam. What do you think about these prices? You know, I thought important when talking about how much these books go for to give you a little bit, you know, more of the history, more of what could be found in the pages. You know, there's a lot more than just the pedigree that makes these awesome and the grades that make them awesome. There's a reason why people collect these. There's why people want to own these. And man, it was really cool to see all of these from a screen, let alone see them in person, Jeff.
Yeah, it was pretty
Damn
good.
you.
I
Damn you.
I felt pretty
Jeff.
privileged to get a chance to flip through all that, man.